My name is Amelia Grant. I'm 41, living in Bristol, UK. For nearly 2 decades, I believed I had everything: security, love, and a husband who promised me the world. His name was Edward, a man everyone admired for his dedication to work and family. But late nights at the office turned into late nights of suspicion. One phone call, one slip of the truth, and my reality collapsed. I wasn't just sharing my husband with lies. I was unknowingly sharing him with another family. Stay with me, because the betrayal I uncovered will make your blood run cold. Amelia sat in her car, rain pounding against the windshield, as she watched Edward laughing with the woman and children. Every second felt like a knife twisting deeper. The woman, later Amelia would learn her name, was Clara Mitchell, wrapped her arms around Edward like it was the most natural thing in the world. The boys, no older than 6 and 8, shouted, "Daddy's home." Amelia's world tilted. For years, she had excused every late night, every forgotten anniversary, every unexplained trip. Now the truth unfolded before her eyes. Edward wasn't just unfaithful, he was living 2 lives. Tears blurred her vision, but anger quickly burned them away. She wanted to storm the house, to scream, to expose him right then and there. But something in her told her to wait. She needed proof. She needed control. The next morning, Amelia called her closest friend, Rachel Evans, a solicitor known for her sharp instincts and blunt advice. Rachel listened in stunned silence before saying, "Amelia, this isn't just cheating. This is fraud. If he's supporting another family with your shared finances, you need evidence." Together, they devised a plan. Amelia began documenting everything: bank transfers, hotel receipts, dates, and times of his business trips. She even hired a private investigator, who within days brought back photographs of Edward with Clara and the children. One night, Amelia confronted him gently, masking her rage. "Edward, you've been distant. Is there something you want to tell me?" she asked, her voice deceptively calm. Edward looked at her, eyes cold and calculating. "You're imagining things, Amelia. You've always been too sensitive." His dismissal was sharp, cruel, almost rehearsed. But inside, Amelia's fire grew. She was no longer the naive wife defending her husband's reputation. She was a woman wronged, a woman gathering strength for the storm to come. The final blow came when Sophie overheard a hushed conversation between Edward and Amelia. Wide-eyed and trembling, Sophie whispered, "Mum, does Dad love us at all?" Amelia hugged her tightly, her heart breaking. "He does, sweetheart, but he's lost his way, and I promise you I'll fix this." At that moment, Amelia knew the betrayal was no longer just hers to carry. It had scarred her daughter too, and that made her resolve unshakable. The revenge wouldn't just be about exposing Edward. It would be about reclaiming her dignity, her daughter's trust, and the life she deserved. Days turned into weeks, and my husband's lies began to unravel in ways I could no longer ignore. At first, I convinced myself that I was overthinking, that maybe the odd behavior was just stress from work. But then, little cracks began to appear in the story he carefully painted for me. One night while he was working late, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, he never left it behind. The message that lit up the screen was short but enough to freeze my entire body. "Good night, love. The kids are asking for you." Kids, my heart raced, my breath caught in my chest. We had one child together, and she was asleep in the next room. Who were these other children? And why was another woman calling my husband love? I didn't open the message then. My hands trembled too much, and fear of what I might find paralyzed me. Instead, I placed the phone back, pretending I hadn't seen it. But inside, a storm raged. My husband wasn't just hiding something small, he was hiding another life. Over the following days, I started noticing how often he forgot small details, how his stories didn't add up. When I pressed him with innocent questions, his answers grew defensive. Sometimes he snapped, sometimes he avoided eye contact. I knew the truth was close, but he was fighting hard to bury it. One Saturday morning, I followed him. He said he was heading to a business meeting across town, but my instincts told me otherwise. I drove behind him, my heart pounding with every turn. He didn't stop at an office building. Instead, he pulled into a quiet neighborhood, parked in front of a small house, and and walked inside with a smile I hadn't seen in years. I sat there in the car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Minutes later, laughter echoed from the open window of that house, children's laughter, warm and carefree. And then I saw her, a woman standing beside him, wrapping her arms around him as if he belonged to her. The truth hit me harder than I ever imagined. My husband hadn't just lied. He had betrayed me, built another family, and lived 2 lives as if I didn't matter. That moment shattered everything. My love, my trust, my marriage, it all felt like a cruel performance in which I was nothing but a background character. I sat frozen in my car that day, staring at the house that seemed to hold my husband's true life. Every second that passed felt like an hour. My mind replayed the laughter, the way that woman leaned on him, the ease with which he carried himself, as though he had never promised me a thing. Tears blurred my vision, but anger soon followed. How long had this been going on? Years? Decades? The weight of betrayal pressed so heavily on my chest that it was hard to breathe. I wanted to storm into that house, to scream, to demand answers. But instead, I stayed still, watching. I needed proof. I needed to see with my own eyes what my gut already knew. Minutes later, he came out again, carrying groceries from his car, smiling at those children as if they were his whole world. The man who was so tired at home, so distant from me, suddenly looked alive. That image burned into my memory. It was the moment I realized the love I thought we shared was nothing but a carefully woven lie. I drove home in silence, my thoughts a whirlwind. By the time he walked in that evening, pretending he had been in meetings all day, I had already made a decision. I wouldn't confront him right away. Not yet. He had hidden this second life from me for so long. Now I would watch him closely, gather every piece of truth he tried so desperately to conceal. Over the next weeks, I became someone else, quiet, observant, calculating. While he lied about late nights and extra projects, I checked phone records, tracked his car, and even spoke with a friend who worked near that neighborhood. Each discovery cut deeper, birthdays celebrated without me. Photos of him holding children who carried his same smile, and messages full of affection he hadn't shown me in years. It was as if I had been replaced, not just as a wife, but as a human being. The man I trusted most had built a secret world, and I was living in the shadow of it. Yet deep down, a new strength began to rise within me. I realized I had a choice: remain the silent victim of his lies, or stand tall and take back control of my life. That choice would define everything that came next. The weight of his lies hung heavy in the air, but now I was no longer broken. I was determined. Every smile he flashed when leaving for his late-night meetings, every casual excuse about why he couldn't spend time with me, only fueled my resolve. I wasn't going to be fooled anymore. One evening, I decided to test him. I cooked his favorite dinner, set the table beautifully, and waited. When he called to say, "I'll be late at work again," my voice didn't tremble. I simply replied, "Of course, I understand." But inside, I smiled bitterly. I knew exactly where he was going, and I wasn't far behind. I parked 2 houses down from her place and watched him walk inside, carrying flowers this time. Flowers. He hadn't given me flowers in years. Rage pulsed through me, but I held back, clutching the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Bursting in now would give him the power to twist the story, to deny, to gaslight me. No, I needed undeniable proof. The next morning, I contacted a private investigator. It was a decision that felt like betrayal on my part, but in reality, I was only uncovering his. Within days, photos, receipts, and records piled up in my hands. There he was, vacations, family outings, even school events. He had built an entire second home while leaving me in the dark. Looking through the evidence, I felt my heart shatter again and again. But then, a strange calm settled over me. I wasn't the weak, naive wife anymore. I wasn't the woman who cried herself to sleep, begging for scraps of attention. I was a woman who finally saw the truth. The hardest part was pretending at home, sitting across from him at dinner, listening to him complain about work stress, while knowing he had just tucked his children into bed across town. It took every ounce of strength not to scream, but I knew timing was everything. I started planning quietly, carefully. I consulted a lawyer, secured my finances, and prepared for the day I would finally confront him. No more secrets, no more lies. The man who thought he could live two lives was about to watch his empire of deceit crumble. And I promised myself one thing. When the truth came out, it wouldn't just expose him. It would free me. The day of truth finally arrived. I had rehearsed it 100 times in my head, yet my heart still pounded like a war drum. He walked through the front door, loosening his tie, wearing that same fake exhaustion he had worn for years. This time, I didn't greet him with silence or forced smiles. Instead, I slid the thick folder of evidence across the table. "What's this?" he asked, his voice sharp, defensive. "Your real life," I replied coldly. He flipped through the photographs, him holding another woman's hand, him standing with children who shared his features, him laughing in front of a house I had never seen. His face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but no excuses could save him now. "All those nights you said you were working late," I continued, my voice steady. "You were building a life that never included me. You left me alone while you played husband and father somewhere else." He tried to stammer out apologies, weak words, desperate pleas, but I didn't let him. For once, I wasn't the quiet wife swallowing pain. I was the woman reclaiming her power. I told him I had spoken with a lawyer, that divorce papers were ready, and that his empire of lies would collapse in the open. His double life wasn't just exposed, it was finished. For a moment, he looked small, like a man who finally realized the weight of the destruction he had caused. But my sympathy was gone. Years of betrayal had burned it out of me. The next weeks were brutal, yet liberating. My world shifted, but in that chaos, I found clarity. Friends who once doubted me stood by my side. I discovered strength I never knew I had, strength born from surviving the deepest kind of betrayal. And when I finally walked out of that house, the same house where I had once dreamed of a family, a future, a forever, I didn't look back. I left with dignity, with truth on my side, and with a heart no longer chained to lies. He thought he had broken me, but in reality, he had awakened me. And that was his ultimate punishment, knowing that the woman he betrayed was the same woman who rose above him, stronger, freer, and untouchable. Amelia Grant lived a life most of her friends envied. Her home was warm and elegant. Her teenage daughter, Sophie, 14, was thriving at school, and her husband, Edward, was a respected financial consultant who provided everything she thought they needed. He often said, "I'm doing this for us, Amelia, for Sophie, for our future." At coffee mornings with neighbors, Amelia would often defend Edward's long hours. When whispers of suspicion reached her, she laughed them off. "Edward is the most loyal man I know," she would insist. But beneath her calm smile, a shadow of unease had started growing. Edward had become increasingly secretive, changing his passwords, guarding his phone, and disappearing on weekends under the pretext of client meetings. The moment of truth came on a rainy Thursday evening. Amelia had just settled Sophie into bed when her mobile rang. A woman's voice, shaky and hesitant, asked, "Is this Edward's wife?" Amelia froze. "Yes, this is his wife. Who's speaking?" The reply was devastating. "So am I." Her blood ran cold. Before Amelia could respond, the call disconnected. She confronted Edward the next morning. He laughed, brushing it off as a sick joke, even managing to sound offended that she'd doubt him. But Amelia's instincts wouldn't quiet down. She began investigating. Bank statements revealed charges for hotels and restaurants in cities Edward claimed he'd never visited. His car mileage was higher than it should have been. And one night, when he said he was working late, Amelia drove past his office. It was dark, locked, empty. Determined, she followed him the following weekend. Instead of heading to London for a conference, Edward drove south, into a quiet residential area in Bath. Amelia's hands trembled as she parked at a distance and watched. Edward stepped out, his face lighting up in a way she hadn't seen in years. A woman opened the door, smiling warmly. Two small boys rushed forward, boys with Edward's same blue eyes. Amelia gasped, her heart tearing apart. It wasn't just an affair. Edward had built another family while living a lie with her.